The crackling fire cast long dancing shadows. They stretched and twisted, mimicking the ancient trees surrounding the clearing. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, a whispering counterpoint to the fire's roar. The air hung heavy with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Night had draped its inky blanket over the wilderness, creating an intimate circle of light in the heart of the forest. 8 figures huddled around the flickering flames. Their faces, illuminated by the fire, were a mixture of anticipation and unease. Stories were shared, jokes were told, but an undercurrent of tension rippled beneath the surface. The wilderness, vast and unknowable, pressed in on them. It observed them with an ancient, indifferent eye. The night grew deeper, the stories grew darker. A strange quiet descended upon the group, broken only by the crackling fire and the occasional hoot of an owl. This quiet was a palpable thing, a blanket of anticipation. It hinted at the unsettling events that were soon to unfold. The wilderness held its breath, waiting. The fire was their only solace, their only defense against the creeping darkness. It painted their faces in flickering hues of orange and red, creating an eerie tableau. They were actors on a stage, unaware of the impending drama. They were puppets of fate, their strings about to be pulled. The night whispered secrets, secrets only the fire could hear. Among the group was a seasoned traveler, his weathered face etched with the stories of 1,000 journeys. He spoke of distant lands and forgotten lore. His voice, gravelly and low, held the group captive. He spun tales of mystery and intrigue, his words weaving a spell around the fire. He was a master storyteller, painting vivid pictures with his words.
A young couple, barely out of their teens, sat close together. Their hands intertwined, seeking comfort in each other's presence. Their eyes, wide and innocent, reflected the flickering flames. They were city dwellers, venturing into the wilderness for the first time. This campfire was a novelty, a romantic escapade. They were unaware of the darkness that lurked just beyond the firelight.
A solitary woman, her face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, sat apart from the others. She seemed lost in her own thoughts, her gaze fixed on the dancing flames. A mysterious aura surrounded her. She spoke little, her silence adding to the growing unease. She was an enigma, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Her presence added a layer of intrigue to the already charged atmosphere.
Whispers carried on the night wind, snippets of conversations half heard, half imagined. The forest seemed to be listening, its ancient trees silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. The air crackled with an unspoken tension. It was a tension that tightened with each passing moment. The fire, once a source of comfort, now seemed to cast unsettling shadows.
A jovial man with a booming laugh and a penchant for tall tales tried to lighten the mood. He told jokes and anecdotes, he poked fun at the growing unease. His attempts at levity, however, seemed forced, a thin veneer over the underlying tension. His laughter echoed unnaturally in the stillness of the night.
A wizened old woman, her eyes twinkling with ancient wisdom, observed the group with a knowing smile. She had seen much in her long life. She understood the rhythms of the wilderness. She sensed the shift in the air, the subtle change in atmosphere. She knew that something was about to happen, something inevitable.
A nervous young man, fidgeting with a worn pocket knife, glanced nervously at the surrounding trees. His eyes darted from shadow to shadow. He seemed to be on edge, as if anticipating danger. His fear was contagious, adding to the collective unease. He was a barometer of the group's anxiety, his nervousness reflecting their own. The firelight painted their faces in shifting hues. It highlighted the lines of worry and anticipation. They were a diverse group, brought together by chance or fate. They were bound by the shared experience of this night, a night that was about to change their lives forever. They were players in a game they didn't yet understand. Section 5, the storyteller's pause. The storyteller, his voice now hushed and grave, paused mid-sentence. He looked around the circle, his eyes meeting each person's gaze. His silence was more potent than any words he could have spoken. It was a silence that spoke volumes. It was a silence that screamed of danger.
There's a story I've never told before.
His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. They were a prelude to something dark and terrible. They were a promise of horror. His words were a curse, a spell cast upon the group. He paused again, letting the silence stretch and deepen. The tension was palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket.
It's a story about a night like this.
He trailed off, his words hanging unfinished in the air. He had set the stage. The play was about to begin. Section 1. A scream in the night. A blood-curdling scream shattered the silence. It echoed through the clearing, bouncing off the ancient trees. It was a scream of pure terror, a sound that spoke of unimaginable horror. The scream ripped through the night, tearing apart the fragile veil of normalcy. It was a scream that would forever haunt their memories.
What was that?
The group jolted upright, their faces etched with fear and disbelief. The scream hung in the air, a lingering echo of violence. It vibrated in their bones, a chilling reminder of their vulnerability. They were no longer safe. The wilderness had bared its teeth.
My God, did you hear that?
The firelight danced and flickered, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to writhe and twist. The trees seemed to lean in, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to grasp them. The forest had become a menacing presence, a silent observer of their terror. They were trapped, surrounded by darkness and fear.
We need to stay together.
The scream was followed by a heavy thud, the sound of something falling to the ground. The thud echoed through the clearing, a final punctuation mark to the scream. It was the sound of death, the sound of finality. The sound had brought an end to the storyteller's tale. Section 2, The Fallen Storyteller. The group stared in horror at the fallen figure. The storyteller lay sprawled on the ground, his body contorted at an unnatural angle. His eyes were wide open, staring blankly up at the starless sky. He was dead, his story unfinished, his journey ended.
Oh no, he's gone.
A dark stain spread across his chest, a crimson blot against his worn leather jacket. The stain grew larger, spreading like a malevolent flower. It was the mark of violence, a testament to the brutality of his death. It was a stark reminder of their own mortality.
We need to get out of here now.
Panic erupted. Screams and shouts filled the air. The group scattered, their carefully constructed facade of calm shattered. They were like animals caught in a trap, their primal instincts taking over. The veneer of civilization had been stripped away, revealing the raw fear beneath. The firelight flickered, casting their panicked faces in a macabre dance of light and shadow. The trees seemed to close in, their branches like grasping claws. The forest had become a predator, and they were its prey. They were lost in a nightmare from which there seemed no escape. The young couple clung to each other, their faces pale and tear-streaked. The young man's bravado had evaporated, replaced by a raw, animalistic fear. The young woman sobbed uncontrollably, her cries echoing through the clearing. Their romantic escapade had turned into a nightmare.
This is horrible. I can't believe this is happening.
The solitary woman, her face still hidden by her wide-brimmed hat, remained remarkably calm. She observed the scene with a detached air, her eyes narrowed in thought. She seemed to be assessing the situation, calculating her next move. She was an enigma, her motives unclear.
We need to stay calm. Panic won't help us now.
The jovial man, his laughter silenced, paced back and forth, muttering incoherently. His attempts at levity had been replaced by a frantic energy, a desperate attempt to regain control. His jokes and anecdotes were forgotten, replaced by fear and confusion.
What do we do now? We can't just stay here.
The wizened old woman, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of sadness and understanding, knelt beside the fallen storyteller. She gently closed his eyes, her touch a gesture of respect and sorrow. She seemed to accept his death as a natural part of the cycle of life and death.
We must find a way out of this, together.
Accusations flew like sparks from the dying fire. Suspicion poisoned the air, thicker than the smoke from the embers. The group turned on each other, their fear morphing into anger and distrust. They were like cornered animals, lashing out in desperation.
It was you. You were always so quiet, so secretive.
The young man shouted, pointing a trembling finger at the solitary woman. His accusation was fueled by fear and paranoia, a desperate attempt to find someone to blame. His fear had found a target.
Don't be ridiculous. I had nothing to do with this.
The solitary woman retorted, her voice cold and sharp. Her denial was swift and emphatic, but it did little to quell the rising tide of suspicion. Her calmness only fueled their distrust.
Then who did it? One of us must be the killer.
The jovial man demanded, his voice cracking with fear. His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken accusation. They were a challenge, a call for confession. The nervous young man, his fear now mixed with a strange sense of purpose, began to search the clearing. He examined the ground, looking for clues, for any sign of the killer. He was driven by a desperate need to find answers, to make sense of the senseless violence.
Look at this. I found something.
He found a small silver locket lying near the storyteller's body. The locket was open, revealing a faded photograph of a young woman. The woman in the photograph was beautiful, her eyes filled with a haunting sadness. The locket was a clue, a piece of the puzzle.
This could be important. It could tell us who the killer is.
He showed the locket to the others, his voice trembling with excitement. The locket was a beacon of hope, a potential path to the truth. The group gathered around, their eyes fixed on the locket. The locket was a tangible link to the dead storyteller, a connection to his past. It was a reminder that he was more than just a victim. He was a person with a story of his own.
Maybe this is the key to solving everything.
The search for answers had begun, and with it a glimmer of hope in the midst of their despair. The shadow of doubt fell over the group, darkening their already fearful faces. The locket had raised more questions than it had answered. It had deepened the mystery, adding another layer of complexity to the already tangled web of suspicion. The locket was a double-edged sword.
Who was the woman in the photograph? What was her connection to the storyteller? And most importantly, did she have anything to do with his death?
These questions hung in the air, unanswered and unsettling. The questions gnawed at their minds, fueling their paranoia. The wizened old woman took the locket, her fingers tracing the delicate silverwork. She gazed at the photograph, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. She seemed to recognize the woman, but she said nothing. Her silence was more potent than any words.
Do you know her?
The young woman asked, her voice barely a whisper. The question was directed at the old woman, but it was also a question directed at the darkness, at the silent forest, at the unknown killer who lurked among them. The question hung in the air, unanswered and ominous. The wizened old woman, her eyes sharp and piercing, took charge. With a voice that commanded respect, she began to question each member of the group. Her years of experience had taught her to read people, to discern truth from falsehood. She was a natural investigator. She was their only hope. She started with the young couple, their faces still pale with shock. They recounted their evening, their voices trembling with fear and uncertainty. They clung to each other, seeking comfort in their shared trauma. Their story was simple, unremarkable. They were innocent bystanders. Next, she turned to the jovial man, his usual boisterousness replaced by a nervous fidgeting. He stumbled over his words, his story riddled with inconsistencies. His laughter was gone, replaced by a palpable anxiety. He was a suspect. The solitary woman, her face still hidden beneath the wide-brimmed hat, answered the old woman's questions with a cool detachment. Her voice was calm, her words carefully chosen. She revealed little, her motives remaining shrouded in mystery. She was an enigma. As the interrogation continued, conflicting accounts emerged. Each person's story differed slightly, adding to the confusion and suspicion.
I saw a shadowy figure lurking in the trees just moments before the scream.
I saw nothing unusual.
The jovial man insisted, but his story was too perfect, too rehearsed. His denial was too strong, too insistent. The solitary woman remained silent, her face hidden beneath her hat. Her silence was a challenge, a refusal to participate in their game of accusations and denials. Her silence was a weapon, a shield against their probing questions. Secrets and lies hung heavy in the air, thicker than the smoke from the dying fire.
The young couple's seemingly innocent story began to unravel under closer scrutiny. They had secrets they were desperate to keep hidden.
The jovial man's forced laughter and nervous fidgeting betrayed a deeper anxiety, a hidden guilt.
The solitary woman's silence was a mask, a carefully constructed facade. Behind her calm exterior, a storm raged. She was the key. The silver locket with its faded photograph remained a central piece of the puzzle.
The wizened old woman, her eyes filled with a knowing sadness, recognized the woman in the photograph. She knew her story, a story of love, loss, and betrayal.
The locket was a symbol of a past love affair, a love affair that had ended tragically. The woman in the photograph was the storyteller's lost love. The locket was a clue that pointed to a motive for murder. Someone had wanted the storyteller dead. A trail of clues began to emerge, scattered like breadcrumbs through the clearing. A broken twig, a footprint in the soft earth, a discarded cigarette butt. Each clue, however small, held a piece of the puzzle. The broken twig, found near the storyteller's body, suggested a struggle. The footprint, imprinted in the soft earth near the edge of the clearing, indicated a hasty retreat. The footprint was a trace of the killer, a mark of their presence. The discarded cigarette butt found near the footprint suggested a moment of contemplation. The cigarette butt was a discarded piece of the killer's identity. It was a clue. As the group followed the trail of clues, they encountered several red herrings.
The red herrings were distractions.
A discarded knife found near the campfire seemed to point to the nervous young man, but the knife was a red herring, planted to divert attention from the real killer.
A torn piece of fabric, found snagged on a nearby branch, seemed to implicate the solitary woman.
But the fabric was another red herring, a carefully placed piece of misdirection. The killer was playing a game of cat and mouse. As the night deepened, suspicions shifted like the shadows cast by the dying fire. Each new clue, each new revelation cast doubt on someone different.
Suspicion fell on the young couple, their secrets and lies exposed.
Then, suspicion shifted to the jovial man, his forced laughter and nervous fidgeting betraying a hidden guilt.
Finally, suspicion settled on the solitary woman, her silence and detachment now seen as signs of cold calculation. Her enigmatic presence, her hidden motives, made her the prime suspect.
The truth was elusive, hidden beneath layers of deception. Was she the one who had taken the storyteller's life? As the night wore on, the darkness deepened, both literally and figuratively. The dying embers of the fire cast long, distorted shadows, creating an eerie and unsettling atmosphere.
The group huddled together, their faces pale and drawn. Fear and suspicion hung heavy in the air, poisoning their relationships. They were no longer a group of friends, but a collection of suspects, each one eyeing the other with distrust.
The mystery of the storyteller's death remained unsolved, a dark cloud hanging over them. The killer was still among them, hidden in plain sight. The night was far from over.
The wizened old woman, her eyes gleaming with an almost unsettling intensity, pointed a gnarled finger at the solitary woman.
"It was you," she declared, her voice unwavering.
The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. The solitary woman flinched, but her face remained hidden beneath the wide-brimmed hat. The others gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. Her silence had been a shield, but now it was a mark of guilt. Their doubts and suspicions coalesced into a single damning accusation. She was the accused. Slowly, deliberately, the solitary woman removed her hat. The firelight illuminated her face, revealing a countenance etched with grief and a chilling resolve.
"Yes," she admitted, her voice low and steady, "I killed him."
The confession hung in the air, a stark and undeniable truth. She held up the silver locket, the faded photograph gleaming in the firelight.
"This," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "this is why..."
The locket was the key, the missing piece of the puzzle. The wizened old woman nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. She had known the truth all along. The woman in the photograph, she explained, was her sister. The storyteller, a charismatic and manipulative man, had seduced her sister, promising love and marriage. He had then abandoned her, leaving her heartbroken and pregnant.
She'd not intended to kill him, she claimed. She had only wanted to talk, to make him understand the consequences of his actions. But he had laughed at her, mocking her sister's pain. In a fit of rage, she had struck him, pushing him backward. He had fallen, hitting his head on a rock. It had been an accident, she insisted.
The solitary woman's confession, raw and emotional, filled the clearing.
She spoke of her rage, her grief, and her overwhelming regret.
The others listened in stunned silence, their initial horror giving way to a grudging understanding. Her motive, though flawed, was understandable.
It's over now, child. The truth is out. You are free.
Her words were a balm, a soothing touch in the darkness. The solitary woman broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She had confessed, and in doing so, she had found a measure of peace. She was no longer alone. The police arrived, summoned by one of the group. The solitary woman was taken into custody, her face pale and resigned. The mystery was solved. The killer was caught, but there was no sense of triumph, only a profound sense of loss. A life had been lost. A life had been changed forever. The wizened old woman remained by the dying embers of the fire, her eyes gazing into the flames. She knew that justice was not always black and white. Sometimes it was shaded in grey, tinged with sadness and regret. The others watched as she was led away, their faces a mixture of relief and sadness. In the days that followed, the group dispersed, each returning to their own lives, forever changed by the events of that night.
The young couple, their relationship strained by their shared trauma, drifted apart.
The jovial man, his laughter now tinged with a hollow echo of guilt, retreated into himself.
The nervous young man, his fear replaced by a newfound sense of purpose, dedicated himself to helping others.
The wizened old woman, her wisdom deepened by the tragedy, continued to guide and comfort those in need.
The clearing, once a place of laughter and camaraderie, now stood silent and empty.
The forest had reclaimed its space, the story was over, the memory of the Campfire murder would linger. A chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of love and loss. The wilderness surrounding the clearing seemed to hold its breath, absorbing the weight of the unspoken.
The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the echoes of screams and accusations, a haunting reminder of the violence that had shattered the tranquility.
The charred remains of the campfire lay cold and lifeless, a stark contrast to the vibrant flames that had danced and flickered just hours before. The clearing, once a haven of warmth and light, was now a desolate testament to the darkness that can lurk within the human heart.
A heavy silence descended upon the group, a silence that was more oppressive than the screams and accusations that had preceded it.
Each member of the group was lost in their own thoughts, grappling with the weight of what they had witnessed. The silence was a palpable thing, a thick, suffocating blanket that enveloped them. They were bound together by this silence, by the shared experience of a night that would forever haunt their memories. Despite the confession and the arrest, a sense of unease lingered, a disquieting feeling that not all the pieces of the puzzle had fallen into place. Questions remained unanswered, doubts persisted, and the truth, like the shifting shadows of the night, seemed elusive and ever-changing.
The mystery, while seemingly resolved, continued to cast a long shadow over their lives. The solitary woman's motive, while understandable, felt incomplete. There was a depth to her grief, a chilling resolve in her actions that hinted at something more than a simple act of revenge.
Her silence, even in confession, suggested a hidden layer of complexity, a secret that she was unwilling or unable to reveal. Her story was a puzzle with missing pieces.
The storyteller's past, too, remained shrouded in mystery. Who was he, really? What other secrets did he harbor? His sudden death had left a void, a gap in their understanding of the events that had transpired. He was a ghost, a specter haunting the edges of their memories.
The locket, the symbol of a lost love and a broken promise, was a tangible reminder of the unanswered questions. Who was the woman in the photograph? What was her fate, and what role, if any, had she played in the unfolding tragedy? The locket was a silent question mark, a symbol of the mysteries that remained. The scars of the past, like the embers of the dying fire, glowed beneath the surface, threatening to reignite at any moment. The Campfire murder had unearthed old wounds, exposing the hidden pain and unresolved conflicts that festered beneath the veneer of normalcy. The past was a ghost, haunting their present.
The young couple, their relationship already fragile, fractured under the strain of the shared trauma. The murder had exposed the cracks in their foundation, revealing the unspoken resentments and insecurities that had been simmering beneath the surface. Their love story had become a tragedy.
The jovial man, his laughter now a hollow echo, struggled to reconcile his outward persona with the fear and vulnerability he had experienced that night. The murder had stripped away his mask, revealing the insecurity and self-doubt that lurked beneath his boisterous exterior. He was a broken man.
The nervous young man, haunted by the image of the storyteller's lifeless body, battled nightmares and flashbacks. The murder had awakened his deepest fears, leaving him with a heightened sense of anxiety and a lingering sense of his own mortality. He was a survivor. The forest, a silent witness to the tragedy, kept its secrets close. The trees stood sentinel, their branches swaying in the breeze, as if whispering amongst themselves. They had seen it all, but they would never tell. The forest was a vault, holding the truth locked within its ancient heart. The clearing, once a place of laughter and camaraderie, was now a place of memory and mourning. The charred remnants of the campfire were a silent testament to the events that had transpired, a reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of darkness. The clearing was a scar on the landscape. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, a fragrance that would forever be associated with the night of the murder. The forest, in its silent way, mourned the loss of innocence, the shattering of peace. The forest was a sanctuary. The animals of the forest, the deer, the rabbits, the squirrels, continued their lives, oblivious to the human drama that had unfolded in their midst. They were creatures of instinct, driven by the primal forces of survival. They were a reminder of the cyclical nature of life and death, the eternal rhythm of the wilderness. The forest was a constant. A ghostly presence lingered in the clearing, a palpable sense of unease that clung to the air like a shroud. It was as if the storyteller's spirit, unable to find peace, remained tethered to the place where he had met his untimely end. The clearing was haunted. The wind whispered his name, a mournful sigh carried on the breeze. The trees seemed to sway and moan, as if grieving his loss. The shadows danced and flickered, mimicking the movements of his body as he fell. The clearing was his final resting place. The embers of the campfire, though long extinguished, seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, as if his spirit was trying to communicate from beyond the grave. The air crackled with an almost electric charge, a palpable sense of his unseen presence. The clearing was a portal. The others, though they had left the clearing, could not escape the feeling that they were being watched, that the storyteller's spirit was following them, a silent observer of their lives. They were haunted by his memory. Despite the tragedy, despite the lingering sense of unease, there was a strange kind of peace to be found in the wilderness. It was a peace that came from the acceptance of life's inherent uncertainties, the understanding that darkness and light, joy and sorrow are intertwined and inseparable. The wilderness was a teacher. The forest, in its ancient wisdom, offered solace and healing. The trees, standing tall and strong, were a reminder of the resilience of nature, the enduring power of life to overcome adversity. The forest was a healer. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, dappling the ground with patterns of light and shadow, a symbol of the interplay of darkness and light that defines the human experience. The air was fresh and clean, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, a reminder of the cyclical nature of life and death, the eternal rhythm of the wilderness. The forest was a guide. The clearing, though forever marked by the tragedy, would eventually heal. The grass would grow back, the trees would continue to reach towards the sky, and the forest would reclaim its space. Life would go on. The forest was a